The message arrived at 11:47 on a Tuesday night. I almost ignored it. I was lying in bed beside my husband, Daniel, while he slept peacefully with his back turned toward me. The room was dark except for the soft light from my phone. Then my screen lit up, unknown number. For a few seconds I stared at it. I almost put my phone down, then another message appeared. I know you don't believe me, but you deserve to know the truth about your husband. My heart skipped. I sat up slowly. I looked at Daniel. He didn't move. I opened the message. There was a photograph attached. My fingers froze. I tapped it, and everything inside me went silent. It was Daniel, my husband, standing outside a restaurant. And he wasn't alone. His arm was around a woman I knew better than almost anyone in the world, my best friend, Claire. I stared at the picture, hoping my eyes were playing tricks on me. They weren't. Claire was smiling at him. Daniel was smiling at her. And the way they were standing together didn't look innocent. It looked familiar, comfortable, like they had done it before, like they belonged together. My breathing became shallow. I looked at Daniel again. 7 years of marriage, 7 years of memories, 7 years of believing I knew the man sleeping beside me. Then another message appeared. This isn't the first time. Check your husband's phone tomorrow. I felt tears forming in my eyes. I wanted to wake Daniel. I wanted to shake him and demand an explanation. I wanted to call Claire and ask her how she could possibly betray me, but I didn't. Something inside me whispered, "Don't say anything yet." So I locked my phone. I lay back down, but I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying the photograph. Daniel and Claire, together, the two people I trusted most, the two people I would have defended without hesitation, the two people I never thought I would have to question. I turned toward Daniel. He was still sleeping. He looked peaceful, almost innocent. And that hurt more than anything, because just hours earlier, he had kissed my forehead and told me he loved me. I had smiled. I had believed him. Now I wondered, how many times had he said those words while hiding the truth? How many times had Claire hugged me while secretly meeting him? How long had they been laughing behind my back? And the question that broke my heart the most was simple. Was I the only person who didn't know? Got out of bed quietly and walked downstairs. I sat alone at the kitchen table. My hands were still shaking. I opened the photograph again. I zoomed in. There was no doubt. It was Daniel. It was Claire. And suddenly, memories I had forgotten started coming back. Claire asking about Daniel's work. Daniel suddenly becoming protective of his phone. Claire knowing things about Daniel that I hadn't told her. Those late-night conversations that stopped whenever I entered the room. At the time, none of it seemed important. Now every little detail felt like a warning I had refused to see. I put my phone on the table. Then I whispered to myself, "Please let there be another explanation," but deep down, I already knew there wasn't. The next morning, Daniel woke up as if nothing had happened. He walked into the kitchen, kissed my forehead, and smiled. "Good morning, beautiful." I looked at him. For the first time in 7 years, his words didn't make me feel loved. They made me wonder what else he had been lying about. I forced a smile. "Good morning." He poured himself coffee, then he looked at me. "You okay?" I stared into my cup. "Yeah," he smiled. "Good." And just like that, he walked away. I watched him. Then I looked down at my phone. The photograph was still there. The truth was sitting in my hand. But Daniel didn't know that I knew, and Claire didn't know either. That gave me one thing they didn't expect. Time. Time to find out everything. Because I wasn't going to confront them with one photograph. I wanted the whole truth. And once I found it, I would decide what to do next. That was the moment I stopped being the wife who trusted blindly, and became the woman who was finally ready to see what had been happening behind her back. Before that night, I believed I had the kind of life people secretly wished for. Not because we were rich, not because everything was perfect, but because I had two people I thought would never leave my side, my husband Daniel, and my best friend, Claire. Daniel and I had been married for 7 years. We met when I was 26, at a small coffee shop near my old workplace. He accidentally spilled coffee on my notebook, looked completely embarrassed, and spent the next 10 minutes trying to make me laugh. It worked. From that day on, he became part of my life. He wasn't perfect. Neither was I. We argued about money. We disagreed about where to spend holidays. Sometimes we went to bed angry. But we always found our way back to each other. At least, that's what I believed. Daniel used to tell me, "Emma, no matter what happens, you and me are a team." Those words became part of who I was. I believed them. Then there was Claire. I met her during college. We were both young, broke, and completely unsure about our futures. One afternoon, I was sitting alone outside the library when Claire walked over and said, "You look like you need a friend." I laughed. "You always introduce yourself to strangers like that." She smiled. "Only the ones who look lonely." We became inseparable. Over the years, Claire became more than a friend. She became family. She knew everything about me. She knew what made me happy. She knew what made me cry. She knew about every argument Daniel and I ever had. When Daniel proposed to me, Claire was the first person I called. When we got married, she stood beside me. She cried during my vows. She gave a speech at our reception, and she told everyone, "If there is one couple I believe will grow old together, it's Emma and Daniel." I remember looking at her that night and thinking, I am so lucky to have her. I didn't know then how painful those words would become. For years, Claire was always around. She came over for dinner. She spent holidays with us. She joined us on vacations. Daniel treated her like a sister. At least, that's what I thought. Sometimes Claire would tease Daniel. Sometimes they would laugh about jokes I didn't understand. I never questioned it. Why would I? She was my best friend. He was my husband. I trusted both of them completely. Looking back, I can remember small moments that should have made me suspicious. One evening, Claire came over for dinner. She was sitting across from Daniel when she suddenly said, "You still remember that place?" Daniel looked at her. For a second, neither of them spoke, then Daniel laughed. "Of course I remember." I looked between them. "What place?" Claire quickly smiled. "Nothing, just an old story." I laughed and moved on. Another time, Claire knew Daniel had a business meeting before he had told me. I asked her how she knew. She shrugged. "He mentioned it." I didn't think anything of it. Why would I? Trust doesn't make you suspicious. It makes you explain things away. There were other moments too. Daniel started keeping his phone closer. Claire suddenly became interested in Daniel's business. Sometimes she would ask, "Is Daniel working late tonight?" I thought she was just being curious. Sometimes Daniel would receive a message and step outside to answer it. I assumed it was work. Sometimes Claire would look at me with a strange expression. I thought she was tired. I never imagined the truth. Because when you love people, you don't search for reasons to distrust them. You search for reasons to believe them. That was my mistake. Or maybe it wasn't a mistake at all. Maybe trusting the people you love isn't something you should regret. Maybe the real mistake was theirs. But after that message arrived, every memory looked different. The next morning, while Daniel was drinking his coffee, I asked casually, "How's work? Busy? Anything interesting?" He shrugged. "Same old stuff." I nodded. Then I asked, "Have you talked to Claire lately?" His hand stopped for half a second. It was tiny, almost impossible to notice. But I noticed. "Not really," he said. I smiled. "Okay." He continued drinking his coffee. I looked at him. He had no idea that I had seen the photograph. He had no idea that I had spent half the night questioning everything. And he definitely didn't know that I was starting to remember things I had ignored for years. Later that morning, Claire texted me, "Good morning. Dinner this week?" I stared at the message. Normally, I would have replied immediately. Instead, I waited. Then I typed, "Sure, I'd love that." She sent a heart. I looked at the screen. A year ago, that heart would have made me smile. That morning, it made my stomach turn. I put my phone down. Then I opened our old photos. There were 100. Claire beside me, Claire hugging me, Claire laughing with Daniel, Claire standing beside us at our wedding. I stopped at one photograph. It was from Christmas. Daniel was standing behind me. Claire was standing beside him. Her hand was resting on his arm. At the time, I had thought nothing of it. Now I stared at that picture for almost a minute. Then I whispered, "How long?" That was the question that wouldn't leave me, not why, not how could they. Just, how long? Because if Daniel and Claire had been hiding something from me, I needed to know whether I was looking at one terrible mistake or a secret relationship that had been growing right in front of me. That afternoon, I decided something. I wasn't going to accuse either of them. Not yet. I wasn't going to cry in front of Daniel. I wasn't going to call Claire and demand answers. I was going to watch. I was going to listen. And most importantly, I was going to find the truth. Because the woman who had gone to sleep believing she had the perfect marriage and the perfect best friend had woken up realizing she might have been living inside a lie. And before I confronted anyone, I needed to know exactly how deep that lie went. After that night, I started noticing things I had ignored for years. Not because I wanted to become suspicious, but because once you discover one lie, every little detail suddenly feels different. Daniel's behavior changed first. His phone was always with him. If he went to the kitchen, he took it. If he went upstairs, it went with him. And whenever a message arrived while I was nearby, he quickly turned the screen away. One evening, we were watching television when his phone buzzed. Daniel looked at it and immediately stood. "I need to take this. Now. It's work." He walked onto the balcony. I watched him through the glass. His voice was low, but what caught my attention wasn't his voice. It was his smile. He was smiling while talking to someone. When he came back, I asked casually, "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just work." I nodded. I didn't push him. But later that night, I checked the location history on our shared account. Daniel's phone had been near Claire's apartment that afternoon. My heart dropped. I tried to find an innocent explanation. Maybe he had gone there for work. Maybe Claire needed help. Maybe I was letting one photograph destroy my trust. I wanted to believe that the next day, Claire called me. "Emma, are you free for coffee?" "Sure." We met at our usual cafe. Claire hugged me like nothing had changed. "You look tired," she said. "I didn't sleep well. Everything okay?" "Yeah." She smiled. Then she asked, "How's Daniel?" I looked at her. "Fine. Busy?" "Very." She nodded. "Has he been working late?" My heart skipped. "Why are you asking?" She laughed quickly. "I was just curious." I smiled, of course. But inside, I was asking myself the same question. Why did she care so much about his schedule? That evening, I decided to test them. I told Daniel I was going away for 2 days. "I need some time with my sister," I said. He barely reacted. "Okay, have fun." I watched Alftis, no questions, no concern, nothing. I left the next morning and drove to my sister's house. That night, my phone buzzed. "Claire, how's your trip?" I stared at the message. I hadn't told her I was leaving. I replied, "Good." "Why?" She answered, "Just checking on you." 20 minutes later, Daniel texted me. "Hope you got there safely." I checked his location. His phone was moving toward Claire's neighborhood. My hands went cold. I called my sister Mia. "How do you know when someone is lying to you?" She was silent for a moment. Then she said, "When the lies become a pattern." That sentence stayed with me because suddenly I could see the pattern, the secret phone, the late meetings, the strange questions, the hidden conversations. And now this. I opened my laptop and searched through old emails. At first, I found nothing. Then I saw a hotel reservation from 8 months earlier. Daniel's name was on it. The email address belonged to Claire, 2 guests. Same date as Daniel's supposed business trip. I stared at the screen. My eyes filled with tears. He had told me he was alone. He had called me that night. He had told me he missed me and I had believed him. Then my phone buzzed again, Nuno number. "Now you know why I told you to look," I'd typed. "Who are you?" The reply came quickly. "Someone who knows what they've been doing." Then another message appeared. "There's more." I stared at those two words. More? I thought the photograph had already broken my heart. Now I realized it was only the beginning. I closed my laptop. I wasn't ready for the truth. But I knew one thing for certain. I was no longer going to look away, because Daniel and Claire had spent months hiding something from me, and I was finally ready to uncover every lie. By then, I knew something was wrong. But knowing wasn't enough. I needed proof, real proof, because if I confronted Daniel with only a photograph, he could deny it. If I accused Claire without evidence, she could call me jealous. I refused to let either of them make me question my own reality, so I started looking. The first thing I checked was Daniel's old email account. Years ago, we had shared access to several accounts for bills and household expenses. I searched his inbox carefully. At first, there was nothing. Then I found a hotel reservation. My heart stopped. The date was 8 months earlier. Daniel had told me he was away for a business conference that weekend. The reservation showed his name. 2 guests. The hotel was almost 2 hours away. I stared at the screen. Then I saw the second detail. The booking confirmation had been sent to an email address I recognized immediately, Claire's. My hands began shaking. I opened another message. It was from Claire. "I hate pretending nothing is happening." Daniel had replied, "Just give me time." I covered my mouth. They weren't just meeting. They were discussing their relationship. They knew exactly what they were doing. I kept searching. There were restaurant reservations, late-night messages, Decanandor entries that had been disguised as work meetings. The more I found, the more my heart hurt. Then I discovered something that made everything even clearer. A message from Claire sent almost 2 years earlier. "I shouldn't have feelings for you, but I do," Daniel had answered. "I feel the same." 2 years. I leaned back in my chair. For 2 years I had trusted these people. For 2 years I had invited Claire into my home. For 2 years I had defended Daniel. And during all that time, they had shared a secret life. I cried, but only for a few minutes. Then I began saving everything, screenshots, beams, reservations, dates. I organized them into folders. I didn't want revenge. I wanted clarity. I wanted to know exactly what had happened before I made the biggest decision of my life. That evening, Claire texted me. "You seem distant lately. Is everything okay?" I stared at the message, then I replied, "I'm fine, just thinking." She sent back, "You know you can tell me anything." I almost laughed. Anything? The woman who had been secretly dating my husband was telling me I could tell her anything. I put my phone down. Then Daniel came home. He was carrying flowers. "I saw these and thought of you. I accepted them. Thank you." He kissed my cheek. "I love you." I looked into his eyes. "Do you?" He smiled. "Of course." I nodded. "Okay." He had no idea what I had found. He didn't know about the hotel. He didn't know about the messages. He didn't know that I knew their secret had been going on for nearly 2 years. And most importantly, he didn't know that I had already made my decision. That night, I called my sister. "Mia, I found everything." "Are you sure?" "Yes." "What are you going to do?" I looked around the house, at our wedding photograph, at the life I thought was real. Then I answered quietly, "I'm leaving." Maya asked, "Do you want me to come?" I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. "No," I wiped my tears. "I don't need someone to save me." I looked at the evidence on my laptop. I just need to save myself. And from that moment on, I stopped thinking about how to catch them. I started thinking about how to walk away. But before I left, I wanted Daniel and Claire to hear the truth from me, and I knew exactly where I would tell them. I didn't confront Daniel, not yet. I had enough evidence to expose him, but I knew that if I confronted him while I was still emotional, he would turn everything around. He would deny it. He would blame Claire. Claire would blame him. and somehow I would become the problem. So I stayed quiet. I smiled at breakfast. I asked Daniel about his day. I listened when he talked about work. But inside I was preparing to leave. I called my sister, Mia. I found everything, I told her. Does Daniel know? No. Then don't tell him yet. I won't. The next morning, I contacted a lawyer. I wanted to understand my options before making any decision. I gathered our financial documents. I saved copies of the messages and hotel records. I made sure I had everything I needed. For the first time, I wasn't reacting to Daniel's betrayal. I was making my own choices. Then Claire came over. She brought flowers. I thought you might need cheering up, she said. I looked at her and smiled. Thank you. She hugged me. The same woman who had been secretly dating my husband was standing in my home, pretending to be my best friend. She pulled away and studied my face. You've seemed distant lately. I'm just tired. Is everything okay with you and Daniel? My heart was pounding, but my voice stayed calm. Everything is fine, she smiled. Good. I looked directly into her eyes. You're such a good friend, Claire. For a second, her smile disappeared. Then she said, always. That evening, Daniel came home with flowers, too. I love you, he said. I looked at him. Do you? He smiled. Of course. I nodded. Good. He had no idea what I meant. That night, while he slept, I packed a small bag. I looked around our bedroom, the wedding photograph, the old memories, the life I had spent 7 years building. I cried quietly. Then I wiped my tears. I whispered, I didn't lose my worth because they betrayed me. That sentence gave me strength. I wasn't going to fight Claire for Daniel. I wasn't going to beg him to choose me. He had already made his choice. Now I was making mine. I would leave quietly. I would leave with my dignity. And when the right moment came, I would tell them the truth. Not by screaming. Not by destroying myself trying to hurt them. Just by looking them in the eyes and saying, you both chose this. Now you can live with it. Claire invited us to dinner that Friday. She said she wanted to do something special for me. I almost laughed when I read her message, special. After everything she had done behind my back, she still believed I knew nothing. I agreed. That evening, I wore a simple black dress and walked into the restaurant beside Daniel. He held my hand. I let him. For one final time, Claire was already waiting for us. She smiled when she saw me. You look beautiful, Emma. Thank you. We sat down. For the first 20 minutes, everything felt normal. Claire talked about work. Daniel talked about business. I smiled and listened. Then I placed my phone on the table. I have something I want to show you both. Daniel looked confused. What? I opened the first photograph, the hotel reservation, his name, Claire's email, 2 guests. Daniel's face changed immediately. Emma. I opened another, then another mass. Restaurant reservations, private conversations, dates, everything. Claire's smile disappeared. Where did you get those? I looked at her. Does it matter? She started crying. Emma, please let me explain. You had 2 years to explain. Daniel reached for my hand. I pulled it away. Don't. Emma, it wasn't supposed to happen. I stared at him. Then why did it keep happening? He had no answer. Claire wiped her tears. I love him. The words were quiet, but they hurt more than I expected. I looked at her. Then I looked at Daniel and I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. I was finished. I stood up. You don't have to choose between us. Daniel stared at me. I looked at Claire. You can have him. Claire froze. Then I said, I won't compete with you for a man who was willing to lose me. Daniel stood. Please don't leave. I picked up my bag. You made your choice long before tonight. I looked at both of them one last time. I didn't lose my husband tonight. I paused. I lost the illusion that I had one. Then I walked out. My heart was breaking. But for the first time in months, I could breathe. And as I stepped outside into the cold night air, I knew one thing for certain. The truth had finally been spoken. Now they had to live with it.